Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. You know, she's cheating on you. Missy set my coffee down next to a plate of pancakes, then smoothed out her apron, waiting for my reaction. The sounds of the diner seemed to have died down, and I looked up from my phone to find her huge blue eyes staring at me. How do you even know about this? She shrugged and wrinkled her elf nose. I would say it's a woman's intuition, but really, it's just that a fisherman sees a fisherman from afar. There was no sadness, no regret, no sadness in her hoarse voice when she confessed that she was a cheater. She never even really apologized for cheating on me. But there was no malice in him either. That was probably the most frustrating part of it all, and it caught my attention. She wasn't trying to ruin my marriage. She wasn't trying to hurt me or even Caroline. Worse, I wasn't shocked or surprised by her words. There was a feeling, at first rather ghostly, but now more and more obvious, that Caroline's recent business trips were more than just business. Missy was telling the truth as she saw it. I saw you here with her, and I can tell you that. I know it's none of my business, but I don't want you to get hurt again. I felt my lip twitch involuntarily in a crooked smile. I know it's pretty hard for me to judge objectively, considering that I'm a cheater with the morals of a street cat. She said it with surprising cheerfulness. I didn't say that. I told you no. You really said that. Those are your exact words after you threw cash out the window, Missy grinned. Well, now that I think about it, I realize that it was true. That's what I said. It makes me feel bad. Because of what I said? She looked almost offended. No, because I threw cash out the window like that. I forgot that we are on the second floor. She wiped her forehead with mock relief, pushing back her blonde hair, which was cut like a fairy's. Thank God. I don't want you to bother me. Besides, what you said was true. And that's still the case. I like to make love to different people. I really should have thought of that when you asked me to marry you. I'm damn glad I figured that out before we got married. Missy really wasn't the marrying type, but we were too young and stupid to understand that easily. Robert Cash Monet was the unfortunate victim of our discovery. Or rather, my discovery when I found a man in my bed with my theoretically only girlfriend. He didn't even know that she had a fiancé or that she lived with him, so he immediately attacked me as soon as I walked through the door. If we could have found a minute to talk, it would have saved him from 2 broken arms and a broken nose. I got away with saying that I thought he had attacked my girlfriend, although I wasn't entirely sure if anyone really believed it or if everyone just wanted us all to get the hell out of their offices. Me too, she nodded in agreement. Hey, that would be a disaster. I mean, what if we moved to a higher floor? Poor Cash. I nodded with her and grinned at the memory of the shock on Missy's wide-eyed face as we looked out the window together. Yes, he really didn't deserve it. As soon as Cash realized what was going on, his memory became surprisingly fuzzy, much to the prosecutor's displeasure. Damn it, Cash was probably one of my best friends now. It had been a long time since he had made a short and clumsy escape attempt. She stood in silence for a moment. Well, I have to get back to my other clients. Are you sure, Missy? She caught the quiet, dead tone of my voice and looked down at her toes for a second. Yes. I mean, I don't have any proof, but yes, I can feel it. But why do you believe me? You don't gain anything from this. She pretended to frown. I think you really trust me. I'm often alone with your food. Is that why she always tastes like cinnamon? I've been teasing Missy for years because of her addiction to cinnamon chewing gum. She started to say something frivolous and funny, but then she stopped and looked at me sympathetically. You don't seem surprised. Something has been wrong for some time. Even when she was at home, she just wasn't really there. Are you fighting? No, we don't talk much at all. Do you know, it's even worse. The idea of having Missy as a relationship counselor was more than strange, but she was always easy to talk to. She was always good with ideas, even if most of the time she didn't listen to her own suggestions. She leaves her wedding rings at home when she goes out in public. I found them in her jewelry box at least the last 2 times. Missy's eyes widened at these words. Well, damn, it's probably not good. And I think the same way. Can't you ask Cash to figure it out, all his detective stuff? He's an insurance investigator, Missy. not a cop. She pursed her lips. It's almost the same. He even has some kind of private detective license. He knows how to work with a computer and knows how to look at everything, doesn't he? No, not quite. Cash actually had access to all kinds of databases, and he was actually doing various searches. I'm going to stop by Cash's place today. Maybe you're right. She smiled wryly. It usually is. But when I'm wrong, I'm really, really wrong. Cash looked at me over his desk. How sure are you? I don't know. I'm not the expert here. He raised one eyebrow. I thought you had some ideas. I mean, it's not the first time this has happened. You idiot. Well, at least we know that you have your own style. Ignorance. Wow you. I'm glad you feel for me. He chuckled. Hey, I'll help you in any way I can. At least this time I won't be thrown out of the window. God, how many times do I have to apologize for this? Cash chuckled. I'll let you know when you can get to him. Did you pack something like I asked when you called? Here's Caroline's schedule for the last 6 months, the schedule for the next 3 months, the cell phone bills, and all the credit card information. I pushed the folder towards him. Are you the co-owner of all of them? Not her business credit card. Probably nothing can be done about it. I don't mind helping you, but I'm not going to lose my license because of it. Although don't worry, if there is something, I can probably figure it out. Most people aren't as smart as they think they are. He shuffled his papers. You know that's not going to fix anything, right? Yes, I understand. And you know it's not going to make a damn difference in the divorce court, right? Yes. I just want to be sure. I still hope I'm wrong. I don't want to blow everything up without any evidence. But it just so happens that if I start to incriminate her and turn out to be wrong, I can still plan a divorce. Do you think you can fix it? It depends on what is really wrong there. If she's done with us, then I'm done with her. Maybe I'm misunderstanding everything, and she just has problems that she doesn't know how to say. Cash shrugged, and I got the feeling he wasn't really hoping for that. Yes, well, I'll figure it out. Give me a few days to work. Seriously, if she has a problem, I want to help. Maybe she's just under pressure from work. Have you tried to talk about it? She hardly talks to me at all. When I try, she dodges, and then suddenly she has things to do. This is not a good sign. How long has it been this bad? I don't know. Everything happened somehow slowly, but at least for a year. Maybe it all started about 1.5 years ago. Then nothing happened? All I can think about is when she crashed her car on the slippery ice. On her way home from work, she bought Chinese food and got to that intersection on the hill before salt was poured there. He nodded. Yes, I remember that. But it wasn't serious, was it? I shrugged my shoulders. We did a little work with the car body and a slight concussion, but the insurance paid for everything. She was a little out of sorts for a couple of days, but what did you expect? Sometimes such little things make people overestimate their lives. Maybe it scared her more than you think. Do you think she decided to cheat on me because she dented her wing? I don't know, but stranger things have happened. We don't even know if she's cheating on you yet. He wrote something in his notebook. So, 1.5 years ago. I'm not sure, and at first I didn't understand it. It seems that things have gotten even worse in the last few months. She has practically stopped talking to me at all. Before it started, there was a break of months between her business trips, then weeks. Now it's a week or two at most. And where does she go? As always, only the North Central region for her office. Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, and Iowa. Only big cities. It will work. I have a lot of contacts who will work. We have a kind of network throughout this region. Something like a quid pro quo. Reduces the cost of footwork. A lot of guys owe me. He stirred and pulled back his jacket, showing me a big black revolver. Because of one such service, I had to start carrying it with me. But it's pretty easy to watch a little video from the hotel security cameras. I stared at his desk for a moment. I hope I'm wrong. Yes, me too. I expected to regret plugging in the cash, but the next week Caroline was even more distant. If we had talked even less, we would have been silent at all. I had the feeling that she wasn't ignoring me, but rather watching me. Her next business trip was to Omaha, not at all the place I imagined as a hotbed of illegal activity. So I was stunned when a few days later Cash called me to meet me at a diner. Missy put us in a booth as far away from everyone as she could. Cash pushed a stack of photos towards me. I'm really sorry, Lee. It sucks, but it looks like you might be right. I stared at one of the photos of Caroline hanging on some guy in the hotel lobby. Shit. She left with him? I can't say exactly where they went, but she didn't come back until 3 in the morning. Well, it just sucks. Missy leaned over and looked at the photo. It's more like a casual meeting in a hotel bar than a regular connection. I looked up at her. How the hell do you even know that? She tilted her head and studied the photo for a second. The way she stands. She doesn't know this guy at all. She's hitting on him. Cash nodded. Yes, Missy is good at body language, so I sometimes hire her to observe people. Missy wrinkled her nose at him. And I thought it was because of my short skirts and long legs. He cast a sad glance at the ceiling. I looked from one to the other. Do you know, both of you? Missy burst into giggles. Not just no, but damn it, no. Cash sighed. God, tell me you're joking. Both my arms still hurt when the damn weather changes. Suddenly serious, Missy looked at the photos again. So this is a casual relationship, not some regular guy. Although, it probably doesn't change anything, does it? I don't see how it could change anything. Cash shrugged his shoulders. I'll be in Omaha next week. See if I can find this guy. He seems to be a regular, maybe a local, judging by the fact that he and the bartender seem to know each other. I don't know what it might change, but I'll see if I can talk to him. I couldn't see how anything this guy could say would change my mind, but I also didn't see any reason to tell Cash not to do it. Okay, let me know what happens. He nodded. Perhaps it was my imagination, but as I was leaving, I felt pitying glances from both of them. Not that it mattered. I felt very sorry for myself, thinking about how you can even choose a divorce lawyer. After a week and a half and a very depressing visit to a divorce lawyer, Cash called me. Is Caroline here? No. She's in Dayton until next week. I have a bunch of things I want to talk to you about and show you, but I'm behind schedule on a personal injury lawsuit. I need to take a picture of the destruction object, and then I need to go to the airport. Apparently, the guy with the alleged back injury is water skiing in Florida. All this shit is urgent, but it's going to be a couple weeks before I get back, and I think you need to see it right now. So, what's the matter? I have a folder with your name on my desk in the office. Just bring it to the school at the Superfund site in Gusland. This is the demonstration site where the guy was allegedly injured. I'll meet you there. And how am I going to get into your office? Damn it. I completely forgot. Just a second. I waited for a minute while he was doing something. Okay. I texted Missy. She has a key and will meet you at the office. She could have brought the key. And no, the office is about halfway between you. It would be easier if she just met you there. 15 minutes later, I went up to his office, where an annoyed Missy in full war paint and scanty club clothes was waiting impatiently for me. She took it and handed me a large brown envelope. I'm late for a date. I looked at her midriff-bearing top and very short skirt. Sounds like a promising date for some lucky guy. If this skirt was a little shorter, it would be a belt. Yes. That's the whole point. I even have a 6-piece body jewelry set. So let's move on so that I can move on. She locked the door and went down the stairs before I could thank her. I trudged to my car and got in, wondering if it even mattered, or if I was using everything as an excuse to delay the application a bit. Throwing the envelope on the passenger seat, I reached out to start the engine, and just at that moment, Missy knocked on my window. Hey, my car won't start. I don't have much time, but I can take a quick look at her. Don't worry, it's a generator. I raised an eyebrow, and she shrugged irritably. Yes, I know. My mechanic told me that it would fail, but the new one was expensive, and there were these shoes. It doesn't matter. I just need to drive up to the electric club. I'm sure they'll take me home tomorrow morning. You'll have to wait until I talk to Cash. He's going to the airport soon, and I need to talk to him in time. Missy looked like she was going to argue, but shrugged and sat down, taking the envelope. I'm worth the wait. I'll write to him. We were halfway to Gusland when she lost her cell signal and started talking to me instead of texting the guy. So, what did Cash say he was doing at the old lead mine? This city was deserted and closed many years ago. Injury statement. The city has disappeared, and all that remains is the school. I think it's being demolished or something. Yeah. She began to look at the envelope. Have you had a chance to look into it? And when would I have it? She gave me an appraising look. Do you mind if I take a look? I thought about it. No, not really. Probably nothing but the same thing. Impatiently, she tore open the envelope, pulled out a thick folder, and began flipping through it. All this is the cell phone and credit card data that you gave him. Some notes, but I can't make out his handwriting. Missy looked through the folder as I turned onto the overgrown road past the warning signs. She sat up abruptly, pursing her lips and wrinkling her nose. Cash has files here for about 20 guys. Really? When did she sleep? She stared at me, shaking her head slightly in confusion. It doesn't make any sense. What doesn't make any sense? Maybe he mixed up your materials with someone else. She shook her head in confusion again. Why? All these are missing persons cases, starting from the last year and a half or so. I glanced at her, and she shrugged, and then went back to flipping through the folder. Nevertheless, this guy is the one whose photo Cash sent from his mobile phone 2 weeks ago. I could hear the hesitation in her voice. He was on the missing persons report last week. We need to ask Cash what the hell is going on. You'll have to ask him personally. I don't have a single damn wand on this mobile phone. She looked around the deserted area. Lee, I don't like this. Well, we're almost there. So we're going to get answers from Cash now, and I'll just come back. I stopped when the trees finally parted and I drove through an open gate in a high fence with the words, "Construction Zone," and "Do Not Enter." Finally, we reached the long-abandoned parking lot in front of the crumbling corpse of a long-empty school. A lone school bus was melancholically rusting in the middle of the parking lot, obviously waiting for Mad Max to arrive. I saw Cash's car at the entrance next to the Gusland School sign. Next to the building loomed a giant crumbling skeleton of the school mascot, a goose, made of concrete and rebar. I looked twice at the graffiti on the giant goose. Honk the horn? Damn, it must have been a tough football season here. Missy answered absently. It could have been worse. I slowed down when I got to Cash's car. As soon as I started to say something, she waved me to be silent while she read to herself in a half-whisper. She began flipping through the folder frantically. No, no, no. What the hell are you talking about? She shoved a folder into my hands. Photos. God. Photo. It was hard for her to pronounce the words. I rummaged through them. They had nothing in common. Different jobs, different cities. So what? A bunch of different guys. Her breath caught in her throat. Scroll through them quickly. Her voice sounded like she was about to throw up. It was like one of those things I used to draw in the corner of my school textbooks to make cartoons. You quickly scroll through the pages in the correct order, and the bird flies, the ball bounces, the spider crawls, or a person turns. It slowly changed as I flipped through, looking more and more familiar. He was turning into me. Hair color. Eye color. Each victim looked more and more like me. The last 3 looked like my reflection in the mirror. I froze. What the hell? Bullshit? She gasped for air for several seconds. Some of these guys were found dead. I rummaged through the folder again. Words like unsolved and murder kept popping up in my head. Damn it. That's what I thought. Jesus Christ. I said it like a prayer, barely even thinking. Caroline will be back next week, right? Yes. You can't be here. By no means. We'll take it to the police. And then you just go away. Disappear somewhere. Anywhere. I nodded stupidly. If Cash had this, what the hell else does he know? She shook her head slowly. It must be very bad. Let's just take whatever the hell Cash has for me and get back to town. He should be inside. Looking back, I realized that entering the school was probably one of my less than brilliant decisions. Just behind the school office, where the ceiling had completely collapsed, there was an open classroom, and I saw Cash waiting for us, sprawled on a chair, probably in some kind of coat. Missy, following me, was still trying to look through the folder in the fading light. I stopped abruptly when I realized that the coat was a blanket and completely covered the figure. Missy looked up from the folder and stared at it, almost hypnotized, as I slowly moved forward. The glandular smell of blood hanging in the air was a pretty clear sign that what is under the blanket is not what we would like to see. Against my better judgment, I reached out, grabbed the blanket, and gave it a little tug. It caught on for a second, and then it flew off. Missy stifled an involuntary scream with both hands and a bunch of files, then slowly backed away until the wall stopped her. She exhaled noisily. Holy shit. Cash was handcuffed to a chair, his clothes soaked in blood and dripping slowly and sluggishly into a puddle under the chair. His eyes were open and dull, and there was still a cloth gag in his mouth. A huge gash across the throat turned the second, disgusting mouth into a sickening, grim smile from ear to ear. I stated the obvious. Okay, this is really bad. Missy nodded. It's time to make a new plan. Yes, a new plan. Run like hell. It's too late. Caroline's voice cut through the air. But there was something wrong with him. Too tall. A trembling and manic sound. The worst part was that the voice came from the hallway, just outside the classroom. Caroline slowly came into view. Her head hung forward at an odd angle, her hair almost covering her face. She had a butcher knife in one hand and a pistol in the other. Missy bounced off the wall and hurried after me, recoiling when she brushed against Cash's dangling arm. Oh my God. Caroline slowly lifted her gaze from the floor to look into my eyes. Her gaze was distracted. She was looking right through me. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. The strange, childish rhythm in her voice made my stomach jump. I raised my hand, trying to figure out what to say. Caroline. She blinked and slowly pointed the knife at me. You cheated. You shouldn't have hired a private investigator. That's not how we're going to play. You'll get all the pleasure out of it. Your mother. Missy threw files at Caroline, blinding her with a blizzard of paper. Let's run. Missy pushed me, and we both rushed to the side door to the classroom. As we turned into the corridor and headed for the door, which must have been an emergency exit, a deafening shot rang out. We rushed into the bright moonlight, running from the giant, decaying sculpture of the apocalypse goose damn close. As we raced through the overgrown weeds and gravel parking lot to the car, I cast a quick, startled glance over my shoulder. Nothing. Where I expected Caroline to be rushing after us, there was an open fire door, and in it there was just a black, gaping darkness. I started jogging, and Missy looked at me wildly. What are you doing? She's the same. Her voice trailed off when she saw where I was looking. Where is she? I thought she was going to follow us. Yes, me too. Why did she let us? That's probably not good, is it? I looked around the abandoned parking lot. Maybe a little hectic. As far as I could tell, Missy and I were alone. But the moonlight falling through the trees made the shadows so sharp and black that we could be surrounded by an army of such Carolines. I think not. We headed for the car. Damn it. As soon as I saw the car, I realized that we had been fucked. The hood was open and I could see the wires hanging down. There was probably nothing there that I couldn't fix if I had the time, but I had a feeling that I wouldn't get that time. Didn't you lock her up? Missy stared at me in disbelief. Of course he did. But you know she has her own keys, right? I'm sorry. I hadn't thought of that. Missy reached out and hesitantly pulled the handle of Cash's car door. Of course, it was locked. The front door to the school opened slowly with a creak. Isn't this game fun? Caroline's voice sent a chill down my spine. Without saying a word, Missy and I rushed to the back of the school. As we turned the corner, Missy stumbled. I caught her by the arm and kept her from falling. Be careful. She glared at me. It's easy for you to say. If I had known what was going to happen, I wouldn't have been dressed like a dumb girl who dies 5 minutes after the start of this damn movie. Really? She gave me an annoyed look. At least I'd wear sneakers. I would have laughed if I didn't think it would make us both crumble to dust. Missy did what she always did when things went bad. She made even worse jokes. We walked around the sign declaring the pile of rotting boards and metal behind it the Gusland 4-H greenhouse for a better, greener America, and began to work our way through it. Where are we going? I'm damned if I know. The last gas station I saw was almost 20 miles away. Did you know she had a gun? Missy stepped carefully over the piles of trash. I'm pretty sure it's Cash's gun. Finally, we got to the other side of the greenhouse, and Missy started turning to me to say something. Caroline came out of the shadow of the building right in front of us. Obviously, she went through school. There was a strange, childish melody in her voice. You know, you're not very good at this game. It would probably be harder for me if you, well, just stop talking. Missy made a sound that sounded suspiciously like duck and jerked to the right. But Caroline got in my way, leaving me no choice. I turned around and stomped back through the mess as fast as I could. Eerie laughter floated in the darkness behind me. As soon as I got out from under the rubble of the greenhouse, I noticed the door ajar. Ducking inside, I stopped to let my eyes adjust. Pitch black with streaks of silvery white moonlight falling from where the rotten ceiling surrendered to the elements. I made my way through the nightmarish corridors in search of an exit. There seemed to be collapsed ceilings and gaping, seemingly bottomless holes in the floor everywhere. A bright square of moonlight showed me the way out, but it turned out to be a bad choice. The passage was blocked by some kind of heavy wire fence, which I had no hope of getting through. I turned around. There's no way out, is there? The voice was strange, rhythmic. The emphasis was on all the wrong words. When I returned to the hall, Caroline was watching me with undisguised amusement. I backed away slowly. Listen, Caroline. She took a silent step forward, slowly and purposefully, clutching a knife, on the blade of which the silvery moonlight glinted. I started to say something else, but the blank, almost surprised look in her eyes made it clear that she couldn't hear anything. The gun pointed at me convinced me that I couldn't beat her. Rushing down the nearest corridor, I stumbled over debris. I kept expecting her to just shoot me, but there was no shot. I fell flat on my face, then jumped to my feet, looking back almost in panic. Nothing. No movement. Not a sound. Nothing. Groping my way along the wall, I tried to stay in the pitch darkness as long as possible. Every step of my foot seemed to rumble like an avalanche. My own heartbeat was pounding in my ears, almost drowning out the roaring sound of my breathing. I groped for the doorway and, bending down, saw a gigantic space surrounded by streaks of light and darkness. Maybe it was a gym, maybe it was a dining room. Because of the collapsed ceiling and, apparently, the torn floor, I couldn't be sure. What I actually knew was that moving from one floor support beam to another, clinging to the debris required maximum concentration from me. Too big, as it turned out. After I almost lost my grip and slipped off the beam, I stopped to catch my breath and calm down. A low, quiet laugh sounded ahead of me. It took a moment to make her out in the dark. An instant movement, and she slid towards me much faster than I could even dream of moving. She practically jumped from beam to beam, the moonlight reflecting off the blade of her knife. She stopped 3 meters away from me, balancing lightly on a broken beam that I wouldn't even think to put my weight on. I thought she was saying something, but she was just purring, non-melodically, almost random notes. Caroline, let's talk. Something twitched on her face, as if a bug had crawled under her skin. But it shouldn't be like that. You have to keep quiet. We can't let anyone hear, remember? With that, she jumped lightly onto the beam where I was standing. There was a kind of zombie-like smile on her face. Moving slowly, like a cat playing with a mouse, she came closer. And then it disappeared, and I started to fall. The beam broke, dropping her almost soundlessly into the darkness below. This was followed by a crash as debris from the room followed her down. I got caught in some kind of heavy wire loop and held on with all my might. Despite the sharp pain in my head from hitting the end of the beam, I could only see one of her hands sticking out from under the rubble, still clutching the knife. It took all the strength I had, but I managed to get to the next beam, then to the next one. I tried to look back as soon as I reached the other side, but the shadows shifted with the moon, and I could no longer see her hand. Limping through the corridors, I finally managed to get out. Missy? I was sure there was no way Caroline could have caught up with Missy before we met at school. Missy? A figure staggered out from around the corner of the building, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Missy was fine. Then the figure came out into the light, grinning madly, and I rushed to the parking lot. Caroline followed me relentlessly as I dashed past the concrete mascot and raced to the parking lot. A few seconds later, I crashed face first into the gravel. Low bushes hid the parking traffic limiters. I started crawling past the rusty carcass of the school bus. Hop on the bus. The voice hissing the command definitely didn't sound like Caroline's, and I had no choice. I climbed up the steps to the abandoned bus. There's something slippery stuck to my left hand. I came face to face with Missy crouched in the main aisle. What are you doing here? Why didn't you run away? There's a huge fence around the whole area with this giant twisted barbed wire on top, and the gates are closed now. There's nowhere else to go. How exactly will this help? Missy shrugged, her eyes wide. It should be better here than there with her, right? A strange sound, something dragging on the gravel, coming from the front of the bus, made us both freeze. I reached out and silently pushed Missy towards the emergency exit. It was barely ajar. She paused, and I leaned forward until I could whisper in her ear. If she starts coming in, just slip out the back door. We crawled back. Under other circumstances, Missy's short skirt might have been very distracting, but flashbacks of Cash's corpse made me focus. A metallic screech somewhere in the front of the bus made me clench my teeth. Lee. 3, 3. I know you're there. You and your little fool. Missy tensed and looked in the direction of the voice. I saw her mouth curl in anger, but I made a sign to her to be silent. I was pretty sure that a little vilification was the least of our problems. There was a sharp clang of metal on metal, closer and louder. There's always a little fool, isn't there? She obviously knew where we were. I needed to stall for time until I figured out what to do. To Caroline, you know I wouldn't do that to you. Missy is just trying to help. We're worried about you. There was a sharp laugh, like the cry of a jay. I bet it is. I've been watching you. That's how I found out about Richard. I'm always watching you. I know you didn't do anything, but you will. Her voice trailed off, then came back sharper and somehow childish. You always do that, Frank. To Caroline, listen, I'm Lee. An inhuman scream, like tearing metal, sounded very close to the door. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. I know who you are, Frank. I know. Missy's eyes were wide open in shock at this tirade. But before she could say anything, Caroline's head popped out of the bus door on the stairs. Her eyes were white, no matter how you looked at them, clearly visible in the bright moonlight, despite the hair hanging over her face like Spanish bearded moss. That grin, though, it was too wide, too sinister to be even remotely human. The sound of shattering glass rang across the floor as her knife rose to point at us. I see. You. Come on. Missy hit the back door with all her might, opening it just enough to fall to the ground and run away. I ran after her, trying to get to the school building and take cover. With the crack of a shot behind me, something hit me in the thigh and pushed me forward. The blow almost knocked me off my feet. I tried to hold on, but my legs wouldn't obey, and my foot caught on another curbed stone, throwing me forward to the foot of a dilapidated concrete sculpture of a goose. I found myself strangely pleased that I hadn't hit my head again until I realized that my right hand was impaled on one of the rebar spikes sticking out of the base of the sculpture. I pushed off, and the terrible sensation of the rebar moving, scratching the bones in my hand, twisted my insides into a sickening lump. I threw up a little bit when I rolled to the side. My legs just refused to cooperate. Somewhere in the back of my head, a small voice said that my arm and the bullet in my hip would hurt like hell later. A louder, less pleasant voice indicated that this would not be a problem. There will be no later. Caroline shuffled across the parking lot toward me, muttering something to herself that sounded like snatches of nursery rhymes and humming a strange song of random phrases. She stared at me for a moment, puzzled, as if she didn't recognize me at all. A maddening smile slowly grew on his face. Ali, it makes me extremely sad to see you in such pain, but I can fix it. Her face darkened, and her smile turned into a dark, gloomy line. Or isn't it? I can always make you better. Her voice cracked and trembled. Caroline shook her head and slowly shoved the gun into the back pocket of her jeans. She picked up the knife and looked at the moonlight glinting on the edge of the blade. That's more appropriate, don't you think? More intimate. After everything we've done to each other. I don't know why you just can't die, Frank. Wouldn't that be easier? Hey, you fool. Caroline looked up sharply, and I managed to follow her gaze. Missy was standing in the doorway of the school. She was clearly scared, but despite this, despite her trembling voice, she stood defiantly, poking Caroline's dually with both hands. Are you going to let the fool go? I've got all night to track you down, Missy. Besides, it's not about you. It's never been about cheating. It's all about him. The thing is to stop it. This. Jesus Christ, you're crazy. Missy half stepped out into the moonlight. Caroline twitched strangely and stared at her. Shut up. A psychopath. I said shut up. Moron. Missy deliberately rolled Caroline's eyes. Shut up. Crazy. No wonder you can't keep a man. Caroline's face was contorted with anger. I said shut up. Greetings. You're crazy. She's not normal. Missy stuck out her tongue like a child. Maybe it was because she was being called names. Maybe it was the language. Anyway, I could almost hear Caroline grinding her teeth. She screamed incoherently and pulled a pistol out of her pocket, shooting senselessly at where Missy was standing. I groped around for handholds, but found nothing but loose stone. As soon as the gun discharged, I managed to grab a piece of sculpture the size of a softball. Panting with rage and frustration, Caroline tore her gaze away from the now empty doorway and focused on me again. She shifted the knife in her hand and took a step towards me, half muttering, half growling under her breath. She growled and raised the knife just as I brought down a piece of concrete on her leg. I couldn't run, but maybe Missy could, if I could hurt Caroline's leg badly enough. Caroline howled in pain, jumped up and twisted around. Crumbling chunks of concrete rolled under her feet, and she leaned back, landing right next to me, suddenly frozen. I tried to crawl, but my legs still felt bad, and my pierced arm screamed in pain. She jerked and her right heel hit the ground a couple of times, but she didn't get up. Maybe she got a concussion. I barely pulled myself up to her with my good arm, dragging my legs behind me. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had to get it over with, stop her no matter what. She would just keep killing and killing. 3 rebar rods protruded from the center of her chest. I couldn't tell if she could see me or not. Her eyes were unfocused and glassy. She made a sad, painful sound, and for just a second I felt the Caroline I knew and loved. I managed to get my good arm under her head. Then she shuddered, and it was all over. Life had left her, and I was holding a dead weight. I was weak and starting to lose consciousness. So maybe she just had the last breath in her throat, which got stuck when her eyes finally dimmed. But I was sure she had whispered the last word. One last word that I tried my best to hear. Daddy? 6 weeks later. Are you ready to go home? I carefully climbed into the passenger seat. After sitting on an economy class plane, my hip hurt. Yes, thanks for the ride. Missy nodded, fiddling with the air conditioner for a moment. The bruises she'd been covered in at Cash's funeral had mostly disappeared. I thought you might need help getting home. You could just leave the key at the service desk. That would be depressing. Besides, your car still stinks. You need to replace that passenger seat, otherwise it will never smell good. You lost about 1 liter of blood sitting in it while I was taking you out. I sighed sadly. There is no need for such detail. You know, you still owe me for the skirt and the crop top. I snorted. To stop the bleeding, Missy used the only thing she had. I'll buy you 5 of both. It's worth it. I was dragged into the emergency room by a hot naked chick, and I was right at the front of the audience line. As a result, I got the phone numbers of 3 emergency medicine specialists, 2 nurses, and an anesthesiologist. She smiled smugly. I'm not surprised. Even when I was out of my mind, I saw how much attention you get from the guys there. They did seem a little slow in getting me a robe, although 3 phone numbers are from women. Really? Missy waved her hand dismissively. Hey, don't judge me. It doubles my chances of a date on Friday night. We sat in silence for a long time until she drove us out of the parking lot. Do you know that the police probably left a mess in your house? It was already a mess. In the 4 days that I was in the hospital, everything was taken apart. Then they searched her again after they found out that Cash was probably right about her trips. This is a complete disaster. How many guys do they think she killed? They seem to be sure of at least 15 victims, but they're trying to use her to tie her to every missing guy in the region between the ages of 20 and 50. Missy shuddered. I heard that all kinds of video cameras were found in your house. Yes, Tin. They even found a GPS tracker in my car along with an app on my phone that sent her all my SMS messages and recorded all my phone calls. She was watching me all the time. She shuddered. I'm glad I've never sent you nude selfies. I almost did it one night, 1.5 years ago or so. I got drunk, started being stupid, and wanted to show someone my piercing. I thought it was funny, but I sent the photo to the wrong phone. To this day, when talking to me, my cousin Leanne blushes. She shrugged helplessly. So, what did you find in Des Moines? About half of what she told me was a lie. Her parents died in a suspicious house fire when she was 13. She spent a couple of years in a psychiatric hospital, but I couldn't get the records out of there. Not much for almost 5 weeks of searching. Cash was the professional in this, not me, but I guess I found out what I needed to know. And what is it? Her stepfather's name wasn't Kit, as she told me. I closed my eyes for a second. His name was Frank, and there were rumors that he abused some young women. Toe. Missy stared at the road in front of her. Yes, he died before he was charged, so, she didn't take her eyes off the road. He did it. He looked like you, didn't he? I nodded, and I felt my stomach tighten. Frank looked almost exactly like me. We were silent for the next few minutes until we stopped in front of the house. Yellow police tape was still hanging haphazardly by the door. Missy's mouth twisted. Are you really ready to go back there? Not really. I still have nightmares, but sooner or later I'm going to need this place, and where the hell else? She put it in gear. Later then. You can stay with me for a while. Hey, you don't have to do this. You're not the only one who wakes up in a cold sweat, Lee. I thought about it for a second. Do you still have that old couch? No. I bought something better. Good, because that thing was damn uncomfortable. Missy started to say something, but stopped. Ali, you know that everything will be fine. Eventually, you'll get over it and find someone. I wouldn't bet 1,000 on that for sure. Missy tried to restrain herself, but a giggle escaped her. In fact, you began to choose women worse. Lord, we need to give you a lesson, or guidance, or something like that. Something like how to recognize a cheater and a crazy fool. I don't think there is anything like that. We'll look on Amazon. They have everything, she grinned. We pulled up in front of her apartment building. I sat there for a minute, but Missy just jumped out and opened my door. Come on, let's get your bags. I started to clumsily get out. My hip still hurts. Missy helped me up. I can't believe she shot you in the ass. In the thigh. Tell it to others. I was the one who had to stop the bleeding. With all the clothes I was wearing. She shot you right in the buttock. We limped up to the building. I managed to climb 2 flights of stairs and wait for her to get the keys to open the door. As soon as I entered, I noticed 2 upholstered armchairs and a coffee table in front of the TV, but nothing else. I thought you said you had a new sofa. I lied. You know how I do it. We can't help each other with bad dreams if you're here and I'm there, can we? Actually, it's not a good idea. Missy reached out and grabbed my hand. Come on, Lee. I'm going to make you smile again. We'll get you back in the saddle. This is the best medicine for you. I want to show you some new tricks. My hip. Say my ass. I promise you won't even remember the pain. Listen, Missy. I really appreciate everything you've done. All. Hell, I wouldn't even be alive, but we wouldn't. Really? That's what you think. Her voice was replaced by a joyful laugh. Come on, Lee, you know me. I'm not going to be someone's misideal. I don't even want to be her. We both know I can't do it. I let her pull me 2 steps away from the door, and it was obvious that she was still dragging me into the bedroom. Why? I may not be Miss Perfect, but I am Miss Perfect right here and right now. She let go of my hand long enough to take off her t-shirt and pull off her denim shorts in one impossible motion. I'm going to be the most amazing comfort girl in the history of comfort girls. I couldn't help but smile. Later, when you're ready, I'll help you find yourself a Miss Ideal. She laughed melodiously. I swear to God, I'm going to find you the best Miss Ideal in the world. I tried to find something to say about how crazy it sounded, but she cut me off. Why don't we both just sleep with this idea tonight? I believe that in the morning you will begin to see the light. Then she kissed me. There was something about the cinnamon and the carefree warmth. And I realized that she was probably right.